Ever feel like you're being pulled in a million different directions? Overwhelmed, overcommitted? Sound familiar? Well, today we're going to dive into one of the most powerful ways to take your life back. We're talking about personal boundaries. It's honestly the key to shifting from total chaos to a life with a little more control, a lot more peace, and real connection.
Dependable, faithful, reliable. Sounds like a description of a good mule. Oof, does that hit a little too close to home? That feeling of just being a beast of burden, always carrying somebody else's load? If you have ever, even for a moment, felt more like a work animal than a person, then you are absolutely in the right place.
So, to make this all real, let's look at what a life without boundaries actually looks like. I want to introduce you to someone named Sherry. Her story is a perfect picture of the kind of daily stress that so many of us just think is normal. Sherry's day is just a nonstop train of obligations to everyone except herself. I mean, she's fixing breakfast, packing lunches, finishing a sewing project, and this is all before 7:45 in the morning. On top of that, she's exhausted from a surprise visit from her mom, she's feeling resentful about a needy friend, and of course, she says yes to a last-minute project her boss dumps on her. So when she finally has a second for what she needs, a moment of connection with her husband, it's just too late. He's already asleep, and she's left feeling completely alone and just spent. Now, here's the thing. Sherry isn't a bad person. Not at all. She's loving, she's trying her best to help everyone. Her real problem is that she's gotten completely mixed up about what's her responsibility and what belongs to everybody else. She's carrying burdens that were never meant for her in the first place. So if that's the problem, what in the world is the solution? Well, it all starts with getting a handle on one simple but totally life-changing idea. You've got to define your property lines. I want you to literally picture this. A boundary is your personal property line, like a fence around a yard. It's a clear marker that shows exactly where you end and where someone else begins. It helps you get crystal clear on what you're responsible for, and just as important, what you are not responsible for. Let's stick with that yard analogy. Imagine your neighbor never, ever waters their lawn. But for some reason, every time you turn on your sprinklers, all the water lands on their grass. So what happens? Their lawn looks fantastic, right? But your own grass is turning brown. That is exactly what happens when we don't have boundaries. We end up taking care of everyone else's problems while our own life starts to wither. So what exactly is inside your property lines? What's the stuff that's 100% yours to manage? Take a look. It's your feelings, your attitudes and beliefs, your choices, your values, talents, thoughts, desires. All of this stuff belongs to you. No one else can feel your feelings for you. No one else can make your choices. You are the sole owner of this property, and you're the only one who can really take care of it.
Okay, I know what you might be thinking. If it's so simple, why is it so hard to do? And that's a great question. It's because there are these really common myths and traps that almost all of us fall into. So let's break them down.
Most of our issues with boundaries tend to fall into one of these four buckets. See if any of these sound familiar. First, you've got the compliant, the classic people pleaser who just can't say no, usually because they're afraid of being rejected. Then there's the avoidant, who can't bring themselves to ask for help or even admit they have needs. Next is the controller, who kind of just ignores other people's boundaries and doesn't respect their no. And finally, you have the non-responsive, who just seems totally tuned out to the needs of the people around them. Any of those ring a bell? All right, let's bust the biggest myth of all, the one that trips almost everybody up. The idea that setting boundaries is selfish. The reality is, it's the complete opposite. It's actually a form of good stewardship. It's about taking responsibility for the life, the time, and the energy you've been given and using them well. It's not selfish, it's responsible. Okay, so we've figured out the problem, we've busted the myths. Now for the really practical part. How do you actually start building these things in your own life? The whole thing really boils down to this fundamental principle of life, the law of sowing and reaping. Put simply, actions have consequences. And when we constantly rescue people from the consequences of their choices, like paying an adult child's bills over and over, we're actually robbing them of one of life's most important teachers. Boundaries create the space for people to learn from their own choices. So, what can you start doing today? Here are 3 huge steps. First, own your no. Your yes is pretty much meaningless until you can say no, because otherwise you're just acting out of obligation, not free choice. Second, allow natural consequences.
Stop shielding people from the results of their actions. I know it's painful to watch, but it's how we grow. And third, and this is a big one, focus on changing yourself. You can't force other people to change. The only person you have real power over is you. So, what does this actually look like when you put it into practice? Does it really work? Well, let's go back to Sherry and see what happened when she started applying these principles. The changes, pretty incredible.
Okay, remember this? Sherry feeling like the family servant, doing everything, and just simmering with resentment.
And after she set some boundaries, a funny thing happened. Her family started pitching in. It was like a light bulb went on for them. Oh, right. If I don't work, I don't eat. Pretty basic lesson, right? And at her job, remember, she was the go-to person for every single unfair last-minute demand. Well, after she started saying no, her boss actually started respecting her limits. And get this, he had to become more responsible himself. Funny how that works. And in her marriage, she was facing that wall of silence, feeling so lonely. But after, look at this. They're sitting together, they're talking, they're actually connecting. The boundaries didn't push them apart, they created the space for real intimacy. So what's the big takeaway from her story? Her new life isn't about being mean. It's defined by 3 amazing things: freedom from resentment, real self-control over her own life, and deeper intimacy with the people she loves most. And ultimately, that's the promise here. Setting boundaries isn't about building walls to keep people out. It's more like tending to a garden, creating a safe, peaceful space where you and your relationships can finally, truly thrive. So that leaves us with one last thing to think about. Your yes is one of the most powerful and valuable resources you have. So what is one no you need to say this week to finally free up your yes for what really, truly matters?